Welcome to the School of Love, the place where miracles are normal. Hello, and welcome to the School of Love, the place where we learn practical tools based on scientific research towards improving ourselves, living life to its fullest, and contributing to the best of our abilities to the world around us. I am Dr. Maria Grajdian, and I'm a professor of media studies and anthropology at Hiroshima University. In today's video, I'll talk about the Tale of Princess Kaguya, which was released in 2013 under the direction of the reputed animation director Takahata Isao by Studio Ghibli, as well as about life lessons to be learned from it. From the very beginning, I must emphasize the fact that this channel is not part of my educational and research activities at Hiroshima University. It is nonetheless part of my privilege, joy, and sense of duty to propagate and implement knowledge, information, as well as motivation and inspiration outside the limited framework of academic endeavors. Together, we can build up a better tomorrow for as many of us as possible. If you are new to the channel, at this moment I would like to ask you to please consider subscribing, sharing, liking, commenting. Thank you very, very much. This helps us not only with that mysterious algorithm which seems to dominate the YouTube galaxy, but also with contributing to the expansion of the community of humans doing their best to impact positively the world and those around them by discovering their authentic selves and living life wholeheartedly. Thank you very, very much. Thanks again. With that being said, let's dive right into today's topics. Nowadays, it is a common endeavor to search for answers to general questions about humanity and nature, femininity and masculinity, war and peace, technology and emotions, truth and integrity, beyond the typical Western dualism of good and evil paradigms. Looking across cultures, times and spaces in a proactive effort to accomplish different results to the same old challenges implies more often than not the transgressing of emotional and mental barriers while not losing sight of one's own core identity. Such animation movies like The Wind Rises by Miyazaki Hayao, Frozen, under the direction of Chris Buck and Jennifer Lee, and The Tale of Princess Kaguya, directed by Takahata Isao, or released in the year 2013, seem to offer unexpected solutions to the old century interrogations about the role of the human being and its quest for happiness and fulfillment. Miyazaki's work might be by far considered the gentlest animated feature about war, dealing with the fictionalized biography of Horikoshi Jiro, the aeronautical engineer who designed Mitsubishi's A5M fighter and its successor, the Mitsubishi A6M0 fighter, employed by Japan during the Pacific War, more specifically during the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. On a deeper level, though, The Wind Rises tells the all-too-known story of great dreams and the individuals harnessing them, and the way these dreams and their carriers are taken over by the waves of history. The other two animation movies, Frozen and The Tale of Princess Kaguya, tackle the problematic of femininity and its position in late modernity, while referring to the narrative foundation of all legends and folk tales. In soft tones of emotional transcendence, they obtrusively display parables of the risk and responsibilities of uncontrollable power in the hands of individuals, and thus provide symbolic undertones of female empowerment through the prism of the weight of personal choices in the midst of increasing popularity and solitude. So that Andersen's fairy tale, respectively the old Japanese folk tale, become spaces of longing and paradoxically belonging. In analyzing Takahata Isao's last animation movie, I shall focus on the role played by The Tale of Princess Kaguya in the redefinition of femininity as a site of acceptance and compassion, instead of an active interplay of competition and power, as the feminist discourse and the historical reality modeled by that discourse has been constructing it for the past 60 plus years. This will occur in three stages. Firstly, in an initial explanation elucidating the technical data of the animation movie, I shall refer to its characteristics, idiosyncrasies, and intricacies, both as a product of popular culture emerging in a specific geographical area and within a particular historical moment, and as a reflection of the status quo, which crumbles under the weight of political correctness while challenging cultural identity as an ongoing individual project. Secondly, I shall refer to the Tale of Princess Kaguya as a feminist project, in a research endeavor striving to connect late modern feminism and feminist parlance with the original ideals and claims of proto-feminists, and what was, and probably still is, at stake when feminism is approached as a battlefield, a semiotic guerrilla war, instead of an opportunity for growth and communication, an interface for understanding and cooperation, a spiritual journey in the quest for authenticity and harmony. Thirdly, I shall bring into foreground the interplay of Western and Eastern dynamics of modernity as reflected in the Tale of Princess Kaguya as a product of popular culture and its representation of femininity as the driving force for progress and enlightenment. Consequently, I shall delve into the problematic of recent trends in Japanese popular culture beyond the classical soft power or cool Japan paradigms and within the framework of historic geographical events in late modernity. Moreover, it will become obvious alongside the analytical explanations further below, later on, the dialectic relationship between love, empowerment, and identity construction as discursive products are actively negotiated by means of culture production, marketing, consumption perception, and reproduction. This relationship implies three main strategies observed initially in Pompoko, the Heisei Tanuki War: emotional ambivalence, the dynamic reconsideration of legends and myth, the subtle highlighting of the spiral-like dialectics of cause and effect, employed in the process of reconstructing the past as a repository of emotional energy and social culture role models, transcending economic political compulsions. In the process of pointing out the intricate levels comprised by the phenomenon of the feminine self as media-related construction in the unstable stress ratio between individual aspirations and historic geographical embedding, it becomes obvious that beyond being a physical appearance with clearly defined standards of inside and outside, the feminine self is a highly personal concern, related both to the social cultural context of its emergence and to the economic political pathway of its development. In times of the ubiquitous cool self-symptomatology, the reinvigoration of local myth and legends provokes a nostalgic return towards a more classical worldview, with the simultaneous intellectualization of popular culture encompassing the rather conservative message that love, happiness, and existential fulfillment are more than ever individual choices in late modernity. The Tale of Princess Kaguya reconstructs, in its own specific ways, a singularly stunning pathway towards love, happiness, and existential fulfillment as an individual choice. Without aggressively displaying femininity as the solution to all evils, its main character, Takenoko, who will later become Princess Kaguya, the orphaned single child found in the forest who hides a terrible secret unknown even to herself until the time is due for it to be revealed, finds in her feminine core the answers to questions and the healing to pains which seemed previously insurmountable. Intentionally or not, the Tale of Princess Kaguya displays the state of the arts, and while employing a well-known plot based on an old Japanese folk tale, it commits itself to a process of resemantization of that very plot through the creative distribution of its characters and their interactions with each other. Thus, there is a twofold structure of significance. Firstly, femininity and its core element, love. Secondly, individual identity and its interplay with love as a manifold force. Based on the oldest known Japanese folktale named The Tale of the Bamboo Cutter, in Japanese Taketori Monogatari, which can be traced back to the 10th century and is considered the oldest extant Japanese prose narrative, although the oldest manuscript dates to 1592. The Tale of Princess Kaguya is the story of a Thumbelina-like girl found in the bamboo in a forest by an old bamboo cutter who decides to raise the small girl together with his wife in their rural home. Life in this sacred space is idyllic, and the mysterious girl soon earns the nickname Takenoko, or Little Bamboo, for the speed with which she grows, much faster than other kids. The equally miraculous discovery of gold and rare fabrics in the bamboo forest convinces the old bamboo cutter that this eerie creature deserves better, and he moves her to the capital to offer her a life worthy of her fantastic appearance and to seek a husband befitting her apparent aristocratic status. Soon, her newly rich parents install her in a mansion, surround her with servants, and have her trained in the ways of the aristocracy, and subsequently try to marry her. A succession of suitors ensue, all desperate to earn the hand of the mysterious young woman whose ethereal beauty has become legendary. But she rejects all candidates, including the emperor, allotting them impossible tasks to fulfill. Deep in her heart, trapped within the superficial cage of a noble home and rigid social etiquette, the now formally named Princess Kaguya longs for the lost countryside of her childhood. She pines for her earlier, simpler life, the birds, bugs, beasts, grass, trees, and flowers of the nursery rhyme that keeps running through her head, and the friendship of the handsome boy Sutemaru, which has sparked an eternal flame in her heart. Incidentally, she reveals that she is from the moon and must soon return to the land of her birth. On the surface, the Tale of Princess Kaguya is the story of a reluctant young girl, painfully yearning to go back to the forests and hillsides of her childhood, but in Takahata's vision, it becomes a meditation on life's heartbreaking ephemerality. The movie was drawn over roughly a painstaking decade of quests and drawbacks. Though arguably rooted in Ushida Tomu's unfinished toy animation project from the 1960s, in an unfinished-looking freehand, as if the animators had been chasing after the princess in person, trying desperately to capture the essence of each moment as it flew away. Moreover, Takahata uses the setting of classical Japan as an opportunity to work in an eerie register that blends humane social realism with a clear-eyed spirituality and pushes the challenges and limitations of the animated medium to its expressive boundaries. Landscapes fade towards the edge of the frame, and at moments of heightened emotion, such as the princess' frenzied escape from her coming-of-age celebrations, one of Ghibli's greatest ever sequences, characters fall apart into flurries of watercolor and charcoal. The visual result is a surrealistic construction with the haunting simplicity of an ancient scroll painting coming back to life. The story is well rehearsed, yet still startlingly strange, and turns this richly evocative animation movie into a timeless vision corresponding to the tale which inspired it, a parable of the emptiness of earthly possessions and the transcendent power of love. There are indeed weighty socio-political themes to be extracted out of the story's tale of exile and forgetfulness, reward and banishment, but the dominant tone is one of painful tenderness, of the rapturous, bittersweet enchantment with nature that has underwritten so many of Studio Ghibli's works. While the elaborate set pieces, in which suitors are commanded to bring forth the mythical elements with which they falsely describe their love, the robe of the fire rat, the jewel from a dragon's neck, etc., remain intact, it is deep down the typically independent heroine's longing for the simple pleasures of the world that actually fire the action. Seduced by the woodland haven in which she first makes her home, the mysterious Takenoko ventured from the moon to the earth to experience human life. Rendered with deceptive simplicity, the undulating landscapes of her childhood Eden are as attractive and alluring as any fantastic screen environment, both on Earth and on the moon. Moreover, Princess Kaguya's legendary and unspeakable beauty is left as much to the imagination as to illustration, implied by the unprettified strokes that delineate her face. The subtle touch of elusiveness in the constitution of her face and stature metamorphoses into a soft uncertainty that allows her visage to slip almost imperceptibly from childish innocence to lunar luminescence, visible as early as in the scene describing her early years, in which she learns to jump like a frog, in themselves a profound sentimental study of the complex emotion of childhood that must have had parents all over the world gasping with recognition. It is a world of charcoal lines and watercolor flashes. One can almost feel the brush strokes upon fibrous paper as the proudly hand-drawn action unfolds. Skittish motion drawing our attention to the old-fashioned artistry of key collaborators Tanabe Osamu and Oga Kazuo. With its languid pace and expansive running time, the Tale of Princess Kaguya might have missed the immediate connection with younger audiences, both Japanese, Asian, and Western, which more popular animation works had achieved, as reflected in box office sales. Still, Takahata's sensible historical fantasia, which was defeated to the Best Animated Feature Oscar by Disney's Big Hero 6, with its clear influences from Japanese animation released in Japan as Baymax, is a powerful though subtle masterwork, very different in tone and message in comparison to the director's most celebrated works, Grave of the Fireflies and Memories Like Raindrops, but arguably more flexible in its display of the frailty and transience of the human existence. Emotions and moods are anchored to specific moments of stillness, such as when Takahata occasionally cuts away mid-scene to a flower or an animal or running out of water, which become intensive in their unexpected interference. This is reflected in two of the three songs in the film, both on lyrics by Takahata Isao in cooperation with Sakaguchi Riko and with music composed by Takahata Isao. The children's song, in Japanese Warabe Uta, and Heavenly Song, in Japanese Tennyo Uta. The closing chapter, in which the princess meets the heavenly beings who placed her in the bamboo grove in the first place, is a gorgeous Raigozu, a celebratory tableau of the Amida Buddha and a troop of bodhisattvas descending on a cloud that heralds a passage into the next world. On the highly emotional background of the hope against hope finale, it dissolves the coolness of the setup, displaying a fantastical parade of celestial creatures who can glide through walls and and turn arrows into garlands of flowers. It almost endearingly encourages the audiences to keep watching the skies, more than previous cinematic adventures as Ichikawa Kon's live-action Princess from the Moon, based on the adaptation of the 10th century Japanese folktale Takentori Monogatari. The Tale of Princess Kaguya overcomes the science fiction allusions and delves into the depth of the human longings and fears, and transcends them beyond their all too predictable repetition. At its very origins, feminism started out in an effort to recapture femininity from the all-consuming jungle of industrialization and urbanization, the two main elements of modernization. Proto-feminists saw themselves in the crossfires of a society rapidly changing, which required both their reproductive and educative abilities and their skills to be actively employed at the workplace. A workplace patterned upon male necessities and ambitions, to be sure, in factories and ports, in coal mines and on ships, in the building industry and on the fields. In the historical context of a brutal and increasing defeminization of women as potential members of the dynamic workforce and of male voices in the political, medical, technical, technological, and cultural discourse, the intellectual among women at the turn of the 19th century towards the 20th century and the first half of the 20th century initiated a counter-movement targeted at disclosing female citizens as equal to the male citizens, but different in their biological and emotional structure. The main ingredient within this discourse was love, as the core element of the female identity, which mistakenly led decades later to sex as equaling love and to the sexual revolution as the climax of female liberation and empowerment. However, what proto-feminists meant through love is what sociologists would identify nowadays as the missing link in modern societies, thus condemning them and their members to loneliness, isolation, alienation. A vital force residing within the human being. So love is a vital force residing within the human being, the catalyst of all emotions and actions, connecting the universal energy and the individual aspirations into one powerful flow of intent, which subsequently leads to profound connections, both on the surface of social network and in the depth of the family cell. More concretely speaking, love, as it is referred to in terms of gender affiliation to femininity, is that ineffable strength which resides in women and allows them to be mothers and primary educators, therefore protecting the species from its own extinction, even in times of complete recession or social disintegration. The reconsideration of the concept of love as the core element of female identity and the very force which instigates female spirituality, its recapturing by means of products of popular culture, appears as the main focus in The Tale of Princess Kaguya and draws on three main ideas. Firstly, there is the failure of the paternal figure and, generally speaking, of the classical family model, or what has come to be considered the traditional nuclear family of the middle class in Western societies. Indeed, it is good to remember that works of popular culture rarely deal with functional families and communities, but rather with dysfunctional structures. Parental love appears as a means to restrict and condition children and lead those children into inevitable crises, which eventually will only strengthen their sense of self. Like in Frozen, in the Tale of Princess Kaguya, the emotional needs of the children are not met, the kids being advised either to conceal, not feel, like in Frozen, or to give up a life they enjoy for something their father has chosen for them, as the future Princess Kaguya has to painfully acknowledge. Secondly, there is the failure of romantic entanglements as the solution to all evils. The officially named Princess Kaguya, famous for her unworldly beauty, clearly shows that she does not need any man to help her out of her situation and lead her find her place in the world, like Elsa and Anna in Frozen as well. Rather, Princess Kaguya's fulfillment as an individual results from the dissolution of gender limitations and the sublimation of her own fears, either by recognizing that running away to the past and the recurrent loneliness are not valid alternatives to her current life, or by accepting that there are choices one makes in the rage of the moment, like when she invokes the fellows from the moon to take her back from the impertinent, inconsiderate advances of the emperor. Ultimately, she learns that she must carry on those choices, as the only control she has over circumstances is her own reaction to what's coming her way, and the power to move on. Thirdly, the solution proposed by the Tale of Princess Kaguya is one of astonishing simplicity. It indicates of that moment when the necessity and inevitability of building an own identity become imperative, accompanied by an urgent sense of self-awareness and responsibility. Princess Kaguya learns that running away and hiding are no sustainable solutions, and she must face the realities of growing up and confronting the outer world with her own innermost yearnings and desires, and fears for that matter too. She internalizes the lesson that accepting oneself leads inevitably to accepting the others on the one hand, and to a deep-going sense of authenticity in pursuing a life in which the self is free to love and live independently of consequences on the other hand. The most important element in the construction process of individual identity is, thus, a profound crisis, followed by a conscious commitment towards one's own self, ideas and flaws included, separated from external compulsions. Overcoming the individual levels of self-questioning and self-recovery, this process of identity construction finds its completion in unexpected ways. There is a specific dystopian undertone in The Tale of Princess Kaguya, with its loss of community and the dismantlement of family ideas, visible in the uncanny ending, respectively in the sudden leap into fantasy, in the love scene at the climax of the movie. An adultery love scene, to be sure, unique in Studio Ghibli's strict moral guidelines. There is a deep wisdom in this movie, but a deep sadness too. The movie's tagline, The Princess Crime and Punishment, in Japanese Hime no Okashitatsumi to Batsu, offers a clue. While Takahata himself has said he wanted to explore what crime Princess Kaguya might have committed, since the original story is silent on that point. His exploration, though, has little to do with plot and everything to do with his heroine's emotional and spiritual journey, and the way it ends. The climax is a haunting, wrenching evocation of mono no aware, or as it is literally translated, the pathos of things. The basis of Japanese aesthetics since time immemorial, mono no aware is hard to define, but the Tale of Princess Kaguya brilliantly illuminates it with images of life being the loveliest in its transience, of parting in its terrible finality, very different from the other 2013 blockbuster Frozen, which scores points mainly for its originality in the tender acuity with which the relationship between the two sisters is observed. In the Tale of Princess Kaguya, individual fulfillment and a clear sense of self emerge from love as what one could call an invented emotion, intensively negotiated by proto-feminists in their quest for a functional definition of femininity and its features, its necessities and its challenges, as well as its ideals. It allows for transfer of significance in historical terms, which leads in its turn to social cultural affiliation as the result of conscious choices on the basis of everyday events and accumulated life experience. Emotional ambivalence delivers the impetus to intellectual activism transcending time and space. Social actors, as Pierre Bourdieu put it, grow into responsible, self-aware citizens. More than being a plain animated Bildungsroman in terms of classical education and formation, the Tale of Princess Kaguya, like Frozen in its own way as well, creates aesthetic ideological spaces where the overcoming of loss and fear leads to the creation of the material individual, embedded in historical reality, which turns again into a site of responsible, self-aware citizen participation. The self-aware responsible citizen becomes able to live in the moment and to respect life as the most precious asset one possesses and could ever possess. Instead of running away without looking back and rejecting any sort of responsible awareness, the feminine self of late modernity accepts its role as part of a larger community and emerges from within this very community as a messenger of love, of gratitude, and of forgiveness, as well as of the power of remembrance. At the historical point in which the law of the strongest, who wins and continuously moves forward, as promoted by Western dialectics, seems to have definitely got out of hand, the Tale of Princess Kaguya offers an alternative to this perspective, while deeply touching on the problematic of the return to those tales which made humanity a soft, warm space to embrace all inhabitants, with no need to fight and hate each other. While clearly successful life is measured nowadays in materialist accomplishments, deeper levels of contentment and happiness are shut down through education and role models imposed by mainstream media. The meaning of male, masculine, and feminine moves from the biological dimension into the discursive formation, and the very nature of masculinity and femininity is challenged in the light of ever-changing patterns of success and progress, based on hedonist criteria. In this late modern chaos, the Tale of Princess Kaguya brings a ray of order and hope. There is, to be sure, no reassuring or superficial optimism, no place for a lesson along the lines, the charming prince will come one day, and its aggressive cousin, nevertheless, you are perfectly fine without him, and you can even live happily ever after without him. Instead, there is the powerful, encouraging suggestion of the admittedly more difficult alternative: discipline and hard work, humility and self-confidence, loyalty and respect, the establishing of a life goal and its steady nurturing, cherishing victories and learning from setbacks, thus disclosing the delusional charm of a worldview based on the cultural consumption of prefabricated emotions and instant gratification, and revealing the beauty of human life as a project of love, belonging, and compassion. The Tale of Princess Kaguya refers in this reading to the necessity to reconsider femininity and its loss through a wrongly understood and applied feminism, and to regard its reinvigoration, respectively its repositioning at the center of humankind, with a focus on the power of the feminine instance and of femininity in its most fascinating dimensions: its regenerative abilities, its comforting glow, its visionary optimism and energy. With the plaintive sound of a half-remembered folk song echoing through the trees, the Tale of Princess Kaguya brings the audiences to its audacious final act into a state of elegant readiness. It would have been easy for this section to tip over into fantastical foolishness, but as the narrative takes flight and worlds collide, we find ourselves hoping against hope for a Disney-fied happy ending. What we get instead is something altogether more elegiac: a cosmic conclusion of operatic proportions that somehow manages to sit organically among the lyrical frolics that have gone before it. The main song, Memories of Life, or in Japanese Inochi no Kyoku, created by the in-house composer of Studio Ghibli Hisai Shijo and sung by Kazumi Nikaido, puts this best into perspective. Liberation and empowerment are powerful mindsets in defining individuality and happiness, as well as one's position within the larger framework of the national society or of the world at large. They are important mental assets in fashioning a sense of self, both in its structure and dynamics, and in its relation to another, in its correlation to another, eventually in its transcendence through another. Being a liberated and empowered human being, as a man or as a woman, means to comprehend responsibilities which come with the right to be free and self-determining, responsibilities which include, for better or for worse, a sense of awareness of the others and of togetherness in imperfection, of one's own fragility and vulnerability, and of one's own need to belong and be accepted. Liberation and empowerment never meant selfishness and self-centeredness, disregard for rules and morality, contempt for pain and longing, which are the main catalysts of the current social crisis in Japan and in the entire rich post-industrialized, service-dominated Western societies. Feminism, as it was envisioned and outlined by its founding mothers, was the effort to win back femininity and feminine essence, as well as feminine energy from the increasingly dangerously powerful, unstoppable, all-consuming modernization, with industrialization and urbanization being its two main factors. When Simone de Beauvoir wrote The Second Sex, or in French Le Deuxième Sexe, in 1949, she referred to the culturally constructed differences between men and women, and how these are exploited by being naturalized through education and role models. Raising awareness on the differences between genders and on the necessity to accept those differences was, in this reading, Beauvoir's task, not the disempowerment of men and their overpowering by women. Moreover, Julia Kristeva's references in her seminal work La Révolution du langage poétique, or in English, The Revolution of the Poetic Language from 1974, to motherhood and mother love in the semiotic spaces of language and arts, which impact and formulate politics and economics, and thus bring societies and technologies of power into movement, were not meant as a cry towards limitless sexual liberation and elimination of man. They were, in fact, an act to awaken insight and caution, to indicate of the lurking dangers within the modernization project, based mainly on such features as physical strength, the pressure to advance and impose progress, to dispose of those unable to keep the pace, either by killing or by displacing them, mostly associated with masculinity and the masculine worldview. Emotions and tender nurturing were not part of the modernity as pursued and developed by technocrats and idealists. They are, though, the fuel on which the engine of femininity works, on which the polarization between masculinity and femininity thrives and, in turn, creates the beautiful contrasts in life and in the world. On the other hand, aggressive movements in the 1950s and in 1960s, followed by a snowball-like succession of misunderstood publications and fake celebrities, created alongside several decades the image of the feminist woman, as void of femininity and emotions, a smaller, physically speaking man, able to compete with her male counterparts in any field. The alpha female, a highly merchandised androgynous creature. In spite of the astronomical pressure to achieve like a man, recent history proves that this is not realistically the case, as separate standards of physical proveness in almost every domain had gradually emerged and stayed in place. However, educated to be assertive and bold, to reject her feminine gender as weak and objectified by instruments of the political discourse, unable to resist as a singular voice in the lonely crowd of misguided fellow citizens, the late modern woman found herself in the new millennium confronted with expectations and tensions she could not possibly deal with. The so-called crisis of masculinity and the disintegration of the social fabric, visible in huge numbers of single persons, single households, single parents, and an unprecedented rate of divorces in the rich, post-industrialized nations, tendency increasing, is a direct consequence of this crisis of femininity, of the impossible choices late modern women are facing and compelled to make, of the contradictory loyalties they are supposed to submit to, marching against nature and defying fundamental laws of the universe, such as the basic polarity between male and female, survival and death, procreation and extinction, belonging and isolation, ultimately between love and hatred. The Tale of Princess Kaguya tackles the feminine woman in an empowering and liberating manner, transcending the fears and limitations imposed upon the feminist discourse, as it was initially meant and constructed by such intellectuals as Simone de Beauvoir or Julia Kristeva, into solutions and visions for the future. The feminine woman of late modernity does not reject her gender and her sexuality, but regards them as assets in her perception and processing of reality, of the world, and of life. She is nurturing but not conformist, and the freedom of choice does not include promiscuity and dishonesty. Living with integrity and facing challenges with courage, she lives in harmony with herself and with the other humans, with the nature and with the universe at large. A soft sense of calm enthusiasm brings her to ever deeper levels of peace within herself, and she glows that peace towards those around her in the eternal flow of coherent human interactions and exchanges. The feminine woman of late modernity is far more than a plain alternative to shoujo and her fluid juxtapositions of power, sexuality, aggressiveness, and nonchalance. The Tale of Princess Kaguya's main character, Takenoko, is, therefore, a metaphor of transcendental femininity across centuries, while having definitely extracted crucial elements from shoujo's imaginary conglomerate. She keeps a childlike joy of experiencing life in its everyday transience, while maturing under the sign of healthily incorporating new experiences and challenges. Mainstream media and public opinions may still objectify and sexualize its presence, but the feminine woman knows that anger and an aggressive display of disdain or contempt is far below her dignity, so that she gracefully distances herself from mass-mediated images and stereotypes of what a woman should be like, and instead focuses on creating a life of her own with people around her with whom she shares common values and ideals. Rising above impossible standards of success and likability, the late modern feminine woman decides that her destiny lies in the very choices she is making. Princess Kaguya does not find, indeed, her fulfillment in direct connection with a man, but rather in her decision to pursue her own path in life, and in her determination and commitment to stay true to herself. It takes sacrifice and pain, as love is not something to take, it is something to give, to oneself and to the others, a mindful choice made every day, like happiness and a warm, soft sense of belonging. Beneath the solitude which might arise from such an attitude towards life, there is the ineffable promise of a better world to emerge from the chaos and confusion of this one, suffocated in sex, consumerism, and hatred. A promise of acceptance and solace, of quiet celebration of the human being and of humanity in its astonishing diversity and unleashed potential. In accordance with Studio Ghibli's specific standards, both ideologically and aesthetically, committed to deliver its products within the all-too-competitive market of popular products, which have strengthened its position as a high-caliber institution of the entertainment industry, the Tale of Princess Kaguya reflects the tensions of the historical context of its release, in which a series of events at various levels, cultural, social, economical, political, and not least technological and educational, had led to an increasing pressure of redefining gender roles in practical terms, so that larger segments of the population are allowed to choose and learn to cope with the new realities of the 21st century. Takahata Isao's final animation work is an impactful contemplation on the value of individualism and responsible identity, with the vital message that life and love are intrinsically worth being savored in their unique transience and irreversibility. It is an ineffable conclusion, expressed in pastel colors and infinite contours, backed by intense, at times extreme emotions, which turn this magnum opus all the more memorable. Thank you very much for listening to me today. I'm looking forward to welcoming you back here again very soon. Love and peace to you all.